of the patent. Okay, so claims. What is claimed is brainwave monitoring apparatus comprising means for producing a base frequency signal, means for producing a first signal having a frequency related to that of the base frequency and at a predetermined phase related thereto, means for transmitting both said base frequency and said first signals to the brain of the subject being monitored, means for receiving a second signal transmitted by the brain of the subject being monitored in response to both said base frequency and said first signals. So they're kind of mixing signals to get an output modulated signal. Mixing means for producing from said base frequency signal and said received second signal a response signal having a frequency related to that of the base frequency, and means for interpreting said response signal, the output signal. Apparatus as in Claim 1, where said receiving means comprises means for isolating the transmitted signals from the received second signals. Apparatus as in Claim 2, further comprising a band pass filter with an input connected to said isolating means and an output connected to said mixing means. Okay, I'm kind of getting into stuff that I don't really understand. Just come and check it out. Let me go through just this. Let me go through this little last part. Number 9. A process for monitoring brainwave activity of the subject comprising the steps of transmitting at least 2 electromagnetic energy signals of different frequencies to the brain of the subject being monitored. That's called heterodyning. In general terms, that's the mixing of any two things. So they'll basically shoot 2 frequencies at the head to get one output frequency. Receiving an electromagnetic energy signal resulting from the mixing of said 2 signals in the brain, modulated by the brainwave activity and retransmitted by the brain in response to said transmitted energy signals, and interpreting said received signal. So they can interpret a said received signal from any area of the brain. The occipital lobe, which is connected to the eyeballs, your visual cortex, which is your visual space, like your mind's eye, what you're visualizing, and then many other parts of the brain that are responsible for your personality, for your happiness, for organization, things like that. So I can't even imagine what areas of the brain that were very that were strengths in my life, that were very well developed, that they may be trying to send signals to actually neutralize or downgrade those parts. Not downgrade, that's not the right word, but to interfere with those areas of my brain that made me strong. I may have had creative skills. For my visual cortex, my visual space, that was always a huge and still is. It still is a huge strength to me, but they are constantly pressing down on my visual cortex to where it's hard to visualize things. It feels like there's just a lead weight on my visual cortex, or sending frequencies to the visual cortex, interfering with my actual thoughts. Now, there's a lot of ways they can do this, but one way that is very scary, and target individuals should know this, and also non-TI should know this, is they will have, like Brian 2 says, they will have a clone member of the hive mind team. That doesn't mean a person in a vat that was cloned. It means somebody who their brain waves are put through the remote platform, and then those brain waves of the person, the clone team, hive mind member, would be matched to your brainwave frequency. So they would be sending thoughts from their visual cortex, which would go through the remote platform. They would be synthesized to your brainwaves, and then they could send that signal, and your visual cortex would pick up someone else's thoughts. So they could visualize something, and they have done this with directed dreaming to me. And when I'm conscious, they will also, send frequencies into my visual cortex visuals that are coming from a person working at that remote platform, who is their brain waves they I guess they may have, Brian too says that they have like a neural chip somewhere in their gear or their body. I believe they either have like a helmet or something to like something like that reads their brainwave activity externally, like some kind of electrodes on their head or a helmet of some kind, and they can push their thoughts, and those brain waves will be matched with yours when they go through the remote station, and then sent to your visual cortex or another part of your brain. So it is very scary stuff, and they've done this on occasion, to me, and it is very scary because having somebody else's visuals in your head when you're trying to think clearly, it's very hard. Now I want to show you this video. You can go to YouTube and put in "Seeing Through Cat's Eyes" experiment. I'm not sure when this experiment was done, but the stuff they're using on us is way more advanced. But this just kind of gives you a taste that it can be done. And now this is a cat. Well, just watch it, and then I'll kind of comment on it.
It is possible to read and to understand the brain.
I didn't know that we started this thing again. So this is a digitized movie. We present this to the animal, and we record the activity of their visual neurons. And these electrical signals that we recorded from will travel through these cables.
She managed to tap the vision from the brain of a cat and to reconstruct what the cat sees onto a computer screen.
So this is a digitized movie. This particular movie is a short clip from Indiana Jones, I think.
Here we see the two images next to each other. On the left, the image that was shown to the cat. At the right, the image that is tapped out of the cat's brain.
So on the right is what the cat is seeing, filtered through its brain.
That's probably the noise of the actual neurons, because they sometimes fire spontaneous spikes. We consider those noise, but maybe they reflect something else, maybe the thoughts or something. But we can distinguish that. So when we use all of those, thinking that they represent visual information, this is the reconstruction that we come up with.
So that's how the cat is
It is
seeing
the first time an image was tapped
those
from the
images
brain.
on the left.
It proves that we can read and understand the grammar of it. The face is recognizable, but I still can't avoid the impression that the face has something cat-like.
Alright. Cancel that. There's Dr. Horton in that first one. Now I want to read, this was a cool article that I found on Learning Mind. And I do want to read it. But first I kind of want to give y'all, because I know there are some target individuals who say, they're just, they're reading like an EEG of your mind, and then they can tell what they can tell kind of, what you're visualizing from that response of maybe something that you saw and that matches up with an EEG. But I kind of want to go through, it's like, I was watching some of Brian Two's videos yesterday, and there's so many examples of how they use remote neural monitoring on me, and then the V2K responds. The Chatterbox it would be real-time V2K responding to remote neural monitoring that they're doing of my visual cortex. I just wanted to give a couple examples, and the last examples will be examples that kind of tell that they really can, they really are receiving a signal from that area of the brain. They really are receiving an actual visual. Now the first two might not. I was watching some videos of Brian too yesterday, and please, pray for him. We got to support him somehow, because he's having a really rough time of it. He's had a rough time of it for a while, like we all do. But I was going to bed, and I was just kind of thinking back on those videos, and I was like thinking about how he's doing. And my V2K, the male's voice said, "Oh, he's thinking about Brian too again." So that's one way that it's done. Sometimes, I will think when I'm really struggling and in pain. I love comic books. I love superheroes. So I'll think of Batman. I'll think of Batman and the new Justice League movie. I saw that, and the just every Batman movie. I'll think of Batman when I'm really struggling, so I can kind of pump myself up, you know, because he's the ultimate survivor. And they'll say the V2K will respond when I'm thinking of it. I'm not saying anything, and I guess I am. You know, they might be getting inner voice, like an inner voice signal of me saying Batman. But the V2K will you know, say he thinks he's Batman. You know, he thinks he's Batman. So they might be responding to inner voice on that, because you do, when you think of something visually, you do also kind of give little inner voice. What's it called? You're giving little inner voice clues to what you're thinking of visually. Now, you know, a lot of people say that that's the only way that they do it, but looking at the remote neural monitoring, you know, technology, and then experiencing when I look at something, you know, their responses, and also kind of factoring in that it seems like people would not sit on these remote platforms if they were just getting signals to match. You know, it could not keep them, it could not be novel and entertaining enough to do it for, you know, years and years and years and years and years. And I know they're making money, and they feel like they have to do it or something like that, or some crazy, you know, cult thinking. But I think that you would have a hard time keeping these people on remote platforms if they were not actually seeing visuals from the mind, and they were just maybe seeing inner voice things, and they had to kind of trick it all. It does not seem like my V2K is really tricking it and just seeing my inner voice, and then, you know, trying to act like they do see visuals. They pretty much let me know that they can actually, you know, get a visual signal from the visual cortex. And you got to look at that pattern. Go and look at that pattern, because they can send signals and receive signals from any area of the brain. The visual cortex is an area of the brain. Remotely, they can do this. You know who? Well, we know who's doing it. It's like third-party contractors from the DoD, DIA, CIA, DARPA, and they've contracted it out to front companies. I think some universities are involved. So a lot of people are involved. You know, but I'll just say, you know, the people who are on these remote platforms, and I kind of lost my thought there. Yeah, really lost my thought. Now, another example of remote neural monitoring mixed with the voice to skull in real time is sometimes I will, you know, you talk to a person who you've never seen, and you create a visual in your visual space of how they might look in your imagination. Now, I've done this to many people who I've talked to, you know, on the conference calls or TIs I talk to on the phone, who I've not seen pictures of. And then sometimes I will be thinking about them after I talk to them, and the voice to skull, you know, responds with, oh, he's thinking about this person. You know, oh, you know, he's thinking about, you know, this person. So, and that would be like if a target individual thinks that maybe, you know, you look at a poster, like I have a Batman poster up there, like I look at that poster and it gives a certain EEG, and then when I think about Batman in my visual cortex, they can just match that EEG. That kind of rules that out. But it does not rule out the inner voice thing. I think that they can, maybe if they're not getting a clear remote neural monitoring image, like say you're using Dave CD and it's knocking out some of the signals, but they are getting your inner voice, then they can go to the backup of, you know, of seeing your inner voice and then tricking you to make you believe that they still have the remote neural monitoring working. I do just want to take this opportunity to say all target individuals need to get both of Dave Case's new CDs. And I will, you know, email me, but you can also email bbnatural@mail.com. bbnatural@mail.com is Dave Case's email. You know, and I think I'm going to do a video about just that tomorrow. I'm not going to be able to get to everything that I want to this month, I don't think, especially some testimonies I wanted to get to. I think I might wait till after this month so I can really, really pay a lot